Welcome to the Balanced Recruiter, a slightly unhinged, definitely honest, and occasionally helpful space where we talk about burnout, balance, career chaos, and why your to-do list still has 19 things on it even though you've been working all day. In theory. Hi, I'm Chastity, career juggler, professional plate spinner, and puppy mom. My inbox looks like a crime scene. My laundry pile is silently judging me, and yes, I'm resisting the urge to book a runaway trip to Iceland. Because if I'm gonna burn out, at least let me do it under the northern lights, right? Okay, so today we're diving into something messy but real. It's how generational differences in the workplace shape stress and burnout. Because if you've ever heard a Gen Z coworker say, "Nah, I'm setting boundaries," while you're staying late with a headache, you know what I mean. The burnout looks different depending on the decade you were born into. And yet, here we all are, logging into the same meetings, sitting in the same group chats, and trying to collaborate while quietly losing our sanity. I'm especially excited to dive into this topic because it's been popping up in so many conversations lately for me. Just this past week, it came up at two different events with people from completely different generations, which made the contrast even more interesting, and I knew I just had to touch on it. So here's the thing. Burnout isn't a one size fits all. Like, take for instance, Gen Z, new to the workforce, already exhausted. They grew up in chaos, recessions, pandemics, climate anxiety. They want work-life balance baked in, not as an afterthought. Millennials, we are the poster children for burnout. Student loans, hustle culture, side gigs, delayed milestones. Oh, and being told we're entitled while we're working 60 hours a week. Gen X, often the forgotten middle child. They're stuck juggling raising kids. They've got aging parents and careers. They get burnt out, but they've been trained to just grind through it. Boomers, known for loyalty and staying power, but that commitment often came at the cost of their own well-being, long careers in one place, and sometimes pushing back on the newer generations who want more flexibility. So let's start with Gen Z, the newest crew in the workplace. They're loud about boundaries, mental health, and work-life balance. And honestly, good for them. I wish I was that bold when I was 23. But here's the kicker. Even though they're advocating for balance, they're also experiencing burnout at insane levels. Why? Because job insecurity, rising costs, and social comparison online are draining as hell. Imagine trying to prove yourself at work while also feeling like if you're not an overnight influencer success, you're failing at life. It's super exhausting. So yes, Gen Z says no to overtime, but they're still up at 2 a.m. worrying about rent, job hopping, or feeling stuck in entry-level roles that pay less than their student loans. Their burnout is wrapped in anxiety about the future. Then you've got millennials, my people. We're basically the sandwich generation at work, stuck between the grind hustle culture we were raised on and the boundary setting Gen Z keeps pushing. We're the ones who internalize. If you just work harder, you'll succeed. So we grind, we overdeliver, we yes ourselves into burnout. Adding kids, side hustles, or trying to finally buy a house in this economy, we're done, we're fried. So, quick story. I once had a back-to-back floor coverage, two new hires in training, an overnight merchandising store, and end-of-month sales report piling up, all while closing the store late and still answering emails and texts from my phone in the parking lot. I kept telling myself, it's fine, I'll just push through. Spoiler alert, it wasn't fine. I was crispy. That's the millennial energy. We show up, but often at our own expense. Now Gen X, that forgotten middle child I spoke about in the workplace. Not as loud as boomers, not as trend-driven as millennials, but carrying a lot. These are often your managers who are juggling teenagers at home, and aging parents at the same time. They're loyal, they're steady, but that also means they tend to carry invisible burnout. They don't complain, they just push through, which makes it harder to see when they're drowning. One Gen X leader once said, "I can't burn out. Too many people are depending on me." And that right there, that's the pressure cooker. Because no one is immune, no matter how tough you are. And finally, the boomers. This generation grew up equating work with loyalty and identity. You stay in one job for decades, you give everything you have, then you retire. But the modern workplace, it doesn't always reward that anymore. So you've got boomers staying longer in the workforce, watching younger colleagues bounce jobs and thinking, what the hell happened to loyalty? That mismatch alone creates stress. Add in tech shifts, endless change, and sometimes feeling undervalued. And that burnout hits as frustration and fatigue. It's not that boomers don't work hard. It's that they've been working hard for decades and the game keeps changing under their feet. So, with all of this, there can be misunderstandings. And here's where the stress piles on. Generational differences don't just exist, they clash. Gen Z, they get labeled as disloyal or lazy when they leave jobs quickly. But really, they're refusing to sacrifice health for paycheck. Boomers or Gen X might think, why can't they just stick it out? We did. But millennials and Gen Z saw what that loyalty cost their parents. Burnout, health issues, and sometimes jobs that ended in layoffs anyway. On the flip side, younger workers sometimes assume older colleagues are stuck in outdated ways, when actually they're bringing decades of experience and resilience. These misunderstandings lead to resentment, and resentment, that's a straight shot to more stress, more burnout, and definitely less collaboration. So, yeah, burnout looks different across generations. Gen Z, anxious about the future. Millennials, overcommitted. Gen X, holding it all together. Boomers, tired, but still showing up. But here's the truth. No generation is immune. We just carry it differently. Which is why empathy at work matters. If you're a manager, recognize that your 25-year-old might be burning out for reasons totally different than your 55-year-old team member. And if you're in the thick of it yourself, remind yourself you don't have to burn out just because that's how your generation does work. Let's close with a sticky note challenge. Write this down. Burnout doesn't care what year you were born, but balance can. Be sure to check in with yourself. What part of your burnout feels generational, like something you absorbed from the culture you grew up in? And what part is just human? Because that distinction helps you decide what you can shift and what you can let go of. Burnout thrives on comparison. Balance thrives on compassion. And no matter your generation, we can all use a little more of that. Just to be clear, we can use a little more of compassion, not the comparison. Thanks for hanging out on the Balance Recruiter. Remember, burnout isn't the goal, balance is. And if today's balance means 3 cups of coffee before checking your inbox, that's pretty valid. New episodes drop every week, just in time for the weekend. Follow, share, leave a review, or hide in the Target candle aisle until life feels manageable, whatever feels good for you today. And remember, burnout is real, balance is the goal, and I'm somewhere in between, sniffing eucalyptus scented candles and pretending it's therapy. See you in the next episode.